So let us do a feminist stylistics of this poem by Emily Dickinson. I'm wife, I finished that. I'm wife, I finished that by Emily Dickinson. It is a subject for our feminist literary. When it comes to marriage, Emily Dickinson takes a very complex approach. Despite the fact that Emily hasn't tied the knot yet, she can give us a sense of how things are going for the two of them. For example, Emily states that she intends to complete all of her previous work as soon as possible if she becomes a bride. Now, the harsh puncturing dashes, capital letters, and exclamation points at the end of women's labels and titles, the wife, illustrate this contrast between a woman can never be and what a man may be, a czar. The second stanza's eclipse symbolizes the woman's transition from girl to wife, illustrating the stark disparity between men and women. A wife is obligated to follow her husband's lead, hence, wife is logically the end of a woman. So, because they are a woman, they do not have the same level of freedom as a male. Women may become czars, but a wife can only become a wife if she has the husband as her primary source of admiration. In many families, we observe the intimidation of the woman by her own husband, and here the husband becomes the dominant one. Ignorance and hatred toward married life aren't the main reasons why Emily didn't get married. Rather, she's a woman who hasn't found her place yet in the world after becoming a woman. It's all about who you are. To be labeled as typical, normal, etc., is to be safer and to feel more confident in one's identity. According to the sentence, it's safer thus. With no husband and no male dominance in her life, she feels unsure of herself. Her religion or faith, of course, is ruled by males. Emily Dickinson's attitude towards marriage is complex. Throughout the whole poem, she refers to herself as I'm wife, I finished that. I'm woman now, implying that now that she is married, she is a full woman. According to my reading of the passage, she believes all girls must marry in order to achieve the status of being full-fledged woman. Dickinson seems to advocate for marriage in the first three lines of the poem. It's safer thus, she adds in the last line of verse 1, is where the satirical messages are introduced. In the mid 19th century, women were expected to marry, have a family, and raise children. As a result, in the last line, she makes fun of society for putting pressure on young women to marry. In the second verse, Emily refers to marriage as an eclipse of the woman, despite her dissatisfaction with it. The woman's transition from childhood girl to womanhood wife is defined by an eclipse. Dickinson is a feminine and she prefers woman over wife. Once you realize this, you will view things as the dead perceive life on earth. This is a mild eclipse, and she may be emphasizing the natural development of a girl's life from willfulness to marriage. On the other hand, she connects the dilemma to the earth heaven scenario. A married woman's existence is compared to living in heaven. The last verse details Emily's marriage. The natural path of a girl's life from willfulness to marriage in the soft eclipse, almost like she regard marriage as a sanctuary from pain, although suffering is the opposite of sorrow. To begin this verse, this being comfort then, or the other kind was pain, conveys a conflicting message implying that married life is eventually painless or the contrary. The agony originates from the domestic realities, how a man and a woman will join their desire, habit, and purpose in a country. And if they can't unify, a crisis threatens their home. Rarely does one overpower the other. In this instance, the victimized side is invariably the woman. Emily is dissatisfied with her married life and continually comparing herself, saying, "Why compare? I'm wife," says the poem's concluding line. Stop. she seemed to hear a man say. But she finishes cynically with independence comes pain, so it is natural for women to stop at wife. When she concludes the poem, she says that because she is now a wife, she doesn't need to compare two circumstances. This is the second time she has used the term wife to describe herself. That seems to me that she is making fun of the sexist culture of the mid 19th century, which I believe she is. Emily Dickinson's perspective to marriage is well shown in this poem. As we have seen in the previous part, first three lines demonstrate her pro-marriage view, but in the final she writes sardonic messages, mocking mid-19th century social norms for pressuring females to be married, which she despises. For the girls, marriage is like a soft eclipse, and she wants to demonstrate that. Marrying the females who are expected to do so will either provide them with a more secure and comfortable life, or it will result in a life that is both painful and difficult for them. Perhaps this poem is meant to poke fun at the middle 19th century sexist society, which pressured women to marry and have children and lead a conventional life.